everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan. I'm coming to you live from the FingerLicks1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And what a good day of sports we do have. March Madness in full swing. We're still in the conference tournament stage. And I'm going to go over several basketball games tonight. Got some picks for you. And we're going to do a sportsbook lesson about reading sportsbook odds, what they call American odds. And it's kind of a basic lesson, but I know there's a lot of people that like to bet on the games during the tournament, and they're walking into the sportsbook and they need to know what they're looking at. So we'll talk about that. But before we do, let's get started with updating my bankroll. And as you can see, I started last week with a bankroll of $584, and we had a bet size of 19. Started out good. We had the Jets money line in hockey, and that paid us plus $28 profit. And then we had Bowling Green plus 14 points against Buffalo, and that covered. And that was a $17 profit. And then the rest of it just was all downhill from there. We lost Minnesota by a couple points, minus $19. Yale got crushed by almost 20 points. Very disappointing outcome, minus $19. Citadel also lost by double digits, I believe, minus 19. And Loyola Marymount lost outright to Pepperdine, which was a big surprise to me, minus $19. If you do the math, thanks to the good odds we got on the Jets, we didn't lose too much. We lost a net loss of $31 for the week. So that makes our new bankroll $553, and our new bet size is $18 going forward. So those are the bets. That's the bet size we're going to use this week. So today's sportsbook lesson, we are going to talk about sportsbook odds, and this is a very basic lesson. And bear with me if you are an experienced sports bettor. This is for people that are just learning about sportsbooks for the first time, or they take their annual trip to Vegas and they want to bet on some games, and this is just to help them out. And we have, there we go. Sportsbooks in the USA display what are called American odds, and odds are displayed as a plus or minus number. You'll see minus 110, or you'll see plus 150. And it's tough to know what that means in the context of what type of bet you're making. A plus number usually represents an underdog. If you're talking about a money line bet, you're just picking on one team to win. There's no point spread involved, just who is going to win the contest. The plus number usually indicates the underdog, and the minus number usually represents the favorite. Now, when you're talking about odds to win, like futures odds, a minus number or a plus number could represent the favorite. But when we're talking about betting on a game, you're looking at the plus number representing the underdog and the minus number representing the favorite. That's until you get into point spread bets. But start with examples of sportsbook odds and Moneyline. I pulled these for tonight's game, Duke and Carolina. The Moneyline odds, Duke currently minus 173 and North Carolina plus 147. So North Carolina is the underdog. You must wager $173 on Duke if you want to win a profit of $100. That's how you measure the payout in a minus odds number. If it was minus 150, you would have to bet 150 to win 100. So you can calculate, that much. If you're only making $20 bets, well, you can just divide it by 5. So, to figure out how much you want to put down. And then on the North Carolina side, you could wager $100 on UNC to win a profit of 147. That's how you measure a plus number. A $100 wager would win you that amount plus $147. So once again, you figure out how much if you're making a $20 wager, you just divide that number by 5, and that will show you how much profit you would make on the bet. And then, so now we get into the point spread odds, and the point spread is the great equalizer of wagering. You have Duke -3, -110 at versus North Carolina, +3, -106. So now the odds are almost identical, and the point spread is what makes those odds almost even every time. So again, you must wager $110 on Duke -3 to win a profit of $100. But now on the North Carolina side, you must wager $106 on North Carolina +3 to win a profit of $100. Once again, the odds are very similar, but you're getting 3 points with North Carolina. So you can see the huge difference on 3 points, which in college basketball is basically one possession. 3-point basket being one possession of the ball, getting getting a profit of $147 versus a profit of $100 or a little under $100. So that's why the point spread is called the great equalizer. It's I do enjoy winning more often than losing. So I often, if I'm getting points, I often heavily consider taking the points. But sometimes if I feel a team is strong enough to win outright, I will just bet the money line for them to win the game outright. And then we've also got futures odds. And I pulled these up this morning. These are the current odds I found for each team to win the NCAA title. Both of these teams are considered title contenders, I believe, anyway. Duke to win the NCAA title is 9-4 odds. That equals 2.25 to 1 odds, or equals plus 225. And so if you put it in, if you see it up on the board, 225, that's 2.25 to 1. So if you're trying to figure out what the odds are of the team winning. So a $100 wager on Duke to win the title, they would have to win the whole shebang, would be a profit of $225. North Carolina to win the NCAA title is 11-1, which is plus 1,100, which means a $100 wager would earn a profit of $1,100. Now, when we talk about the concept of value betting and betting the number and not the team, this is a great example of that, because you have two teams that are playing each other tonight, and the point spread's 3 points. They're pretty even. And North Carolina, I think, has had the better of them this season. And you have Duke to win the tournament at 2.25 to 1, and North Carolina at 11 to 1. It sure seems like North Carolina is the better wager there. It's definitely the better value. You have to wait and see the brackets to see what matchups they're going to get. But boy, that's a huge disparity. Now, what drives that is that the public likes to bet on Duke. Duke's on TV the most. And, they like to have money on the game or money on them to win the title. And it drives the price down. North Carolina is probably, their price is probably driven down a little bit too. But, boy, I think they're overall a much better team. I think Duke has a better player, but North Carolina has a better team. Just my 2 cents. But that is today's sportsbook lesson. If you're going to a sportsbook to bet on March Madness, it's a really good time. Just make sure, you give yourself enough time to bet the game before, don't get too close to the beginning of the game unless there's, obviously some injury information or something going on. The odds can change. You can see the odds on the board, and by the time you get to the window, it can be the point spread could have moved. The money line price could have drastically changed. Somebody placed a big bet. You never know. So find yourself the right time to hit the sports book up for your bets and have fun. It's a fun time of year. All righty. So we're going to move on from our sports book lesson. Oh, my goodness. I went right to my picks. NHL, there we go. NHL Friday. I'm having trouble today. NHL Friday, I was like 6 games on the schedule, less than 3 weeks left in the season. We start with the Flyers at the Maple Leafs. Flyers are really, hanging on to a thread for a playoff spot. They're out of it right now, but they're almost mathematically eliminated. They have been playing well, but this game, the Leafs are definitely the favorite here, although the Leafs have played very poorly in their last 2 games. Gave up 5 and 6 goals, I believe, in their last 2 games. I would like the over in this game, I think, but I'm going to stay away from it. The Flyers, if you get the Flyers at over 200, plus 200, that's a different story. Hurricanes at the Blue Jackets. 2 teams. One is in the playoffs. They're actually both right on the line. It's very competitive in the East. Very important game for both teams. I think the Canes have played better than the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets, as I've said all season, to beat the Hurricanes, you have to be physical with them. And if they try to play a speed finesse game with them, they're going to lose. Like the Hurricanes, I don't know if I like the price that much. But we'll see what happens tonight in that game. Very important in the playoff race. Then you have the Vegas Golden Knights at the Stars. The Stars are currently holding the number 1 wild card. Vegas, Fleury is playing tonight. He's the best goalie in the Western Conference this season. The Stars have been playing really well over the last week. It's not enough. The price isn't right for me to bet on the Stars here. This game is priced probably pretty appropriately. I feel like at 140 or more, the Stars would be a play. But then you have the Rangers at the Flames, and the Rangers are completely out of the playoff race. The Flames are fighting for that first spot in the division to avoid getting a really tough first-round matchup. It's a 1-point battle in their division, I think, right now. I like the Flames, but boy, I'm not playing that number. The Rangers have really no incentive to really go out. And I thought for a while that they were, the young guys were really trying to prove themselves, people playing for jobs. It seems like in the last 2 games, it is a road trip though. It's their second or third game on a road trip. I feel like it's just a really tough spot for them. I can't take it, but the price is just not right on the Flames here. So passing on that. The Ducks at the Avalanche. The Avalanche are a team that's also hanging by a thread on a playoff possibility. They have not played well this past week. I feel like that team is really fatigued. The Ducks, really have nothing to lose here. Again, this is a price that I don't like. Again, the Ducks at 200 maybe. The Ducks have solid goaltending with Gibson and Miller, and they're both healthy now. I feel like, that game is just not priced right for me. And then finally, we have the Devils at the Canucks. The Devils beat Calgary the other day, and they're continue their road trip into Vancouver. And Corey Schneider going. He has not had a very good year. The former Canucks goaltender he was years ago. The Canucks have been playing really well, and they are on the outside looking in by about 6 points on a playoff spot, so they're not mathematically eliminated. This is a must-win game for them. I feel like they have a really good shot here to light things up and get 4 or 5 goals here. So this game is the most interesting to me. So we'll see where that ends up on my picks today. So we have what we're going to do is we are going to go to Pinnacle and look at some sportsbook lines. I thought I had my NCAA basketball games all lined up for you, but I don't have it lined up for you. But there's 5 or 6 games I really want to look at, and let's start with, as I scroll down the screen, Ohio State at Michigan State. We've got it's a 12:30 game. Ohio State plus 11 on a neutral court. Ohio State beat Indiana yesterday in overtime. Of course, they're probably a little fatigued. But anytime you're getting a team with double digits in a conference tournament game, you want to look closely at that, in my opinion. These teams will, their season is on the line, so they're going to extend the game at the end They're going to foul. They're going to make it a free throw shooting contest. They're going to take more threes, or they'll take an easy 2 if it's undefended. They say only defended 3. But if the game is over, if the game is already 15 points and out of hand, none of that is going to happen. But or maybe they'll even put the scrubs in. But if the game is even somewhat close, it's going to be double digits. The Syracuse game was a great example last night. Syracuse was it got away from them, and it was 15 points. And then they started 3-minute mark. They started fouling, extending the game. They hit a 3 at the end to cover. I believe it was 12 or 12.5 points was the spread. But that leans towards the dogs most times. So we'll see how that one works out. Moving on down the list here, there's a few more games I want to look at. Mississippi State at Tennessee. I feel like Tennessee is, based on their performance, could play for a top seed. There's a lot of debate about who the number 1 seeds are going to be. Number 1 or number 2, I think really doesn't matter. But Tennessee, I believe, will have no trouble tonight and could cover the 5.5. We'll see how they perform, but I like them to cover tonight. And Seton Hall Marquette. I've just pulled right past it. Seton Hall getting 4. Marquette played very good yesterday. I feel like this is a evenly matched teams, and I like Seton Hall getting 4 on a neutral court here. Obviously, it's much more of a home game for them in New York City. Central Michigan and Buffalo, they're playing in Cleveland, and Central Michigan getting 13. This is another example. Both of these teams shoot threes and free throws about exactly the same. Buffalo is the better team. I think Buffalo is the team to win here. But covering the 13, Central Michigan could do that. I expect it to be a high-scoring game. Should be a lot easier to cover the 13 if they're able to score a lot of points. So that is a game that I am looking at. And Duke, Carolina, I got to tell you that I really like North Carolina in this spot. Everybody was talking about Duke, Zion Williamson for Duke, and how well he played last night, and he went 13 for 13 from field goal. I got to tell you, the guy had a monster dunk or two, and he hit all his shots, and with 6 minutes to go, it was a 5-point game. It's the whole static versus noise thing. North Carolina is far better balanced a team. They have a deeper roster. They have more experienced roster. If you pack, I believe that if you pack the zone on Zion and force Duke to shoot threes, they are not as good as they have been traditionally shooting threes. I'm not saying you give them wide open looks, but you could see that if you took away Zion's stats, that the team was very pedestrian last night. Late in the last few minutes of the game when Syracuse was pressing, Duke got a lot of easy baskets, and some of those guys padded their stats. Really like North Carolina tonight. If they're getting 3 points, more the merrier. I'm hopping all over that one. So let's look at a couple more games. And let's see what we got here. Colorado, Washington. Oh, before we do that one, we got Duke, Carolina. We got Iowa State, Kansas State in Kansas City in the Big 12. Kansas State would finish top of the standings. There isn't really a super standout, top 8 team in the country team in the Big 12. But Kansas State is very solid. And giving them points in this situation, I feel it's the same way I feel about North Carolina. I feel like they have a good chance to win this game. Even if it's a coin flip 50-50 shot, getting the points is going to give you a better chance of winning, and that's value, and that's what you're looking for if you're trying to wager on a game. And then also we have Colorado and Washington in the Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas, and Washington is coached by Mike Hopkins, two-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year, former SU assistant. He knows how to do these things. Colorado is not a light opponent for them, but I think giving 2.5 points, one possession, I like Washington there very much. And then there's one game that I really like, which you can barely see there, is New Orleans and Sam Houston State. Sam Houston State is a sleeper team in my opinion. I look for them to win their bid in their conference. I like them a lot tonight. Abilene Christian is going to be their toughest opponent. I think they've just played a tougher non-conference schedule, and I feel like they're more tournament ready, and I feel like they can cover the 5.5 tonight. So that's kind of a quick and dirty review of all of the college basketball. For some reason, I erased my listing of all of my point spreads, so I had to do it quick and dirty there. So let's just wrap things up and take a look at my picks here now that I've given away the ghost, so to speak. Canucks minus 1.5 goals tonight. I feel like Corey Schneider is he's a good guy, but he's had a very bad year as a goaltender. The Devils have some really nice young pieces that have been playing for them. I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. But the Canucks really need this game, and I feel like 1.5 is betting that at plus 158 is really good value. So, again, as I talked about, Ohio State at 12:30, grab your lunch and watch. Plus 11 at minus 110 odds. Once again, if a team can even keep it close into the second half, it's usually if they extend the game, it's really hard for unless they're just totally wiped out and depleted of their starters. It's really tough to cover those double-digit spreads. North Carolina plus 3, minus 106. It's the third time I've mentioned it today, so I must like it. Feel like that's the strongest play on the board as far as the games today. Washington minus 2.5, minus 106. I look forward to. I think the Pac-12 is going to get 2 bids, maybe 3, depending on how it plays out. But I think Washington will surprise some people in the tournament. But I expect them to carry the water here. Kansas State plus 2.5, minus 104, and Iowa State is always they're always a good team. I feel like Kansas State has enough to carry this tournament. I don't think I will see how Kansas handles West Virginia, but I like Kansas State right now. And then Tennessee minus 5.5 versus Mississippi State, minus 108. So I got an even mix of dogs and favorites there. Mostly major college basketball. There's a few other games I like. I pointed them out to you. Central Michigan plus 13. Sam Houston State minus 5.5. Not going to play those on my official plays. But that's going to do it today for Sportsbook Confidential. We wrapped up a little bit early today, but that's good. I'm get to go out and watch the game. So enjoy your weekend of basketball. Still got to talk about some of the new betting shows that are on TV. We'll get to that in the very near future. We'll have the tournament in full swing next week. So there'll be 32 games. There'll be 16 games on next Friday. So we'll have a lot to talk about. And going to play the outro music for you. And let's get some winners. Thanks for watching. Take care.